How's it going, everyone? This is Derek J407, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on this week's episode of NXT, live from Full Sail University, and for the very first time, well, not technically the first time, it's aired on the USA Network, but it is the first time it was live on the USA Network. That is right, folks. It is that time, the time that we have been building to for months and honestly probably years, where NXT is live on television in a format that many people have mixed feelings on, but I feel that for many years now it was inevitable that NXT would come to broadcast or network television in some way, airing live, and that time is here. Now, it's not fully here, as not all 2 hours of NXT aired on the USA Network. Only the first hour aired, and the second hour aired on the WWE Network. The same will happen next week, and it will end the week after, October 2nd, which so happens to be the same night that AEW debuts its new television show on TNT. So, coincidence, right? But this was the first time NXT aired in a live format, in a non-takeover live format, and they aired it on the USA Network, like I said, for the first hour, and as an overall presentation, I enjoyed it. The show itself, it was what you would expect from NXT. Great action, a lot of drama, a hot crowd at Full Sail, which honestly is not always the case, but usually we have tape shows with that. But I thought it was a really great show, and overall, both hours, I loved. Me personally, loved the first hour a little bit more, but in my own weird rating system, I think I would probably give the first hour, it wasn't necessarily perfect, but no real wrestling show is, but I would probably give like a 4.5, 4.75 out of 5, and I'd give the second hour a 4 out of 5, or 4.25 out of 5. Like, it's just a hair below it. But if you take away the historical, surroundings of this whole event, I look at this episode from start to finish, both on the network and on USA and all that kind of stuff. It was a great episode of NXT. I don't watch NXT every single week. I read the spoilers when they come out, when the show is taped, but I don't watch the TV show every single week on the network in its original form. But when I did, it would, by and large, be a great show. And I plan on doing a similar thing for NXT now that it's on live television on the USA Network. Now, it's going to have competition from AEW in a few weeks, and we'll get to that later on, but I will still go out of my way to watch NXT, for the most part, every week. Whether it's on Wednesday night, whether it's later on in the night after I record it, whether it's the next day, whether it's that weekend, I will dedicate my time to watching NXT. If they keep on putting on shows like they put on tonight, I will definitely do so. So, why don't we just go ahead and get right into it, huh? So, the show kicked off with a Fatal 4-Way number one contenders match to determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. Competitors were Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, Candice LeRae, and Mia Yim. And as the first match to start off this show, you couldn't have went with a better match than this. All four women were excellent in this match. They brought it. You could tell they were motivated. You could tell throughout the entire show, everyone was motivated on this night. They had a big chip. They had chips on their shoulders. They were ready to go balls out, balls to the wall action, and all that kind of stuff. And it showed in this match. Everyone played their roles tremendously. Io Shirai, heel, babyface, doesn't matter. She's incredible. She's an incredible athlete, and she showed that not on full display, but she had her time to shine in this match. Bianca Belair, she's been kind of relegated to the back burner these last few months after her recent run-ins with Shayna Baszler at previous TakeOver shows, but she is still one of the best athletes they have in their women's division. Her power game, her strength is just amazing to watch. There were many points in this match where she kind of went into her own beast mode version, so she was great. Mia Yim, I'm not the biggest fan of Mia Yim out of these 4 women in this match, but I really do like her, and I think she brought a lot to the table here. And of course, Candice LeRae playing the underdog babyface role that she plays so incredibly well, and that played a big factor in this match as well as the outcome. So we see the setting up for the finish of the match. Candice LeRae is down in the ring. Io Shirai goes up top. She's going for her moonsault when out of nowhere, Mia Yim gets up on the apron, knocks Io off the top, but in doing so, Io lands off the top and she goes to the outside and does a crossbody basically on Bianca Belair. So the 2 of them are out. So Mia gets in the ring. She gets Candice LeRae up on the top turnbuckle. She's going for some kind of move on her. She's about to set up for a power bomb, but Candice is resistant, so she turns herself around. Mia does, and she sets up Candice in position for an electric chair. But Candice reverses that and turns it into a reverse Rana, or a poison Rana, as Mauro Ranallo put it. She hit her with a springboard moonsault, and Candice LeRae gets the big win. She is the new #1 contender for the NXT Women's Championship, and she will go on to face Shayna Baszler at a future NXT show. I was personally rooting for Io Shirai to get the win here because I've just been really impressed with her new character transformation, and I thought her against Shayna Baszler, I know it'd be heel versus heel, but I figured that would be a really cool match, and it'd be a really interesting dynamic, much different than the Io Shirai and Shayna Baszler matches we got over the summer, and I thought it'd be a great way to get that title on Io, to continue the feud with her and Candice LeRae for the championship. Unless they wanted to do something where Io got screwed out of it by Candice LeRae, which I guess could still happen if they just do it reverse. Now that Candice has the shot, maybe Io, enraged with jealousy and all that kind of stuff, can't stomach the thought of that happening, so she costs Candice the title. After the match, Candice was on the at the top of the stage, and she got confronted by Shayna Baszler, the champion in question, along with her running buddies, Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir. So they're just trying to intimidate her. And they announced later on in the show that this match between Shayna Baszler and Candice LeRae would be happening 2 weeks from this show tonight on Wednesday. It will happen on the October 2nd show, the first night that NXT will have all 2 hours of its runtime air on the USA Network. And once again, that coincidence word pops up again because that will be the same night that it goes up against AEW in their debut on TNT. So that's a huge match to compete against AEW television. And I'm pretty sure they announced another match that's going to happen on that same night 2 weeks from now, but I can't off the top of my head remember. But yeah, so a great opener, and I'm looking forward to seeing Candice LeRae get a title shot against Shayna. They announced for next week's show we're going to get another match between the 2 big heavyweights of NXT, that being Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic. We've seen them have 2 matches up to this point. Both were tremendous. You just got 2 big dudes beating the hell out of each other and can pull off some athletic ability that you would never expect 2 guys of that size to do. And it's been enjoyable. So I look forward to seeing them go up against each other once again, this time for a much bigger audience to view on the USA Network. Up next, we had a match between Cameron Grimes and Sean Malouda. One that, if you blinked, you missed it. The bell rung. Sean Malouda went right after Cameron Grimes, and Cameron Grimes jumped up, hit him with a diving foot stomp, and got the quick win. So just a vehicle to put over Cameron Grimes, make him look strong. The former Trevor Lee from Impact Wrestling and other indie promotions and all that kind of stuff. He looked good there, and I don't know what his future holds in NXT. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I look forward to seeing more from him. And then what was technically the main event of NXT, although it was the main event of this first hour on the USA Network, which was a smart move, by the way, it was the North American Championship match between Roderick Strong and the Velveteen Dream. Now, this match has been building for quite a while now. Rowdy was the final chapter. He was the final piece of the puzzle to bring together all of the Undisputed Era and Adam Cole's prophecy from the beginning of the year, which stated that the entire Undisputed Era would be draped in nothing but gold in the year 2019. Did Roderick Strong accomplish that goal? Yes, he did. You saw it, you know. But before that, he had a pretty damn good match with Velveteen Dream. So these two, what do you expect? Roderick Strong, not the most charismatic guy in the world, but the dude in the ring is just rock solid. He is awesome. His shit looks like it hurts. He's pretty stiff as hell, but he's still great. And the Velveteen Dream, as young as he is, he has accounted for a great career for himself in NXT so far. He has been a stellar performer on NXT television. He's been a staple for takeover shows and putting on some great matches there, not just because of the people he's in the ring with, although that helps, but because he's really damn good. So you knew going into this that you were going to get a great match, and that's exactly what happened. I'm not going to do the whole blow by blow, just a couple of things. There was one point where Rowdy had his arms trapped in the ropes, so he was, that kind of way that the guys get stuck in the ropes. The referee was trying to break it out, but before he could, Rowdy did that thing where he goes back and forth between the ropes, and when he meets in the middle, he hits a forearm right to the face of the Dream. So he just did that a bunch of times. It was a really cool visual. But eventually, Rowdy locked in the stronghold. It looked like Dream was going to tap out. He was fighting it, and he eventually got to the ropes. And this brought out the rest of the Undisputed Era. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish, all three surrounded the ring. They were just waiting on an opportunity to pounce, and that opportunity came when Dream ended up getting sidestepped and tripped up by Rowdy, and in doing so, he kind of collided into the referee, and the referee went down, so he was gone. He was out of the equation, so that brought in the Undisputed Era boys to get in there. And Dream held them off. Before he could get to them, though, he hit a Dream Valley driver on Rowdy, but then O'Reilly, Fish, and Cole went after him. He took care of them, hit some super kicks on them, so he got them out of the way. But then when he turned back around, he got hit with the end of Heartache by Roderick Strong. The referee came to, went for the cover, and it was only good for a 2 count. Place lost their mind. Full Sail was really digging this match up to this point, and this just kind of sealed the deal for them. They loved it. I think there was a "This is Wrestling" chant at one point during the match, which is pretty goofy, but you know what they mean by that. Their heart's in the right place when they chant that. So Rowdy goes back onto the attack. Dream gets back up, hits him with another Dream Valley driver. He goes to the top turnbuckle, and while I don't know who it was, either Fish or O'Reilly were distracting the referee on the other side. They were up on the apron, so the ref had his back turned, so he couldn't see what was going on behind him. Dream was up top, and while up there, he ended up getting super kicked by Adam Cole, collapsed, fell off the top, and Rowdy picked him up, hit him with another end of Heartache, and we get the 1, 2, 3, and Roderick Strong is the North American champion, joining Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, the tag team champions, and of course Adam Cole, baby, the NXT champion, to bring all of the male NXT championships to the Undisputed Era. They all celebrated after the match as they faded out from the USA broadcasting and faded in to the network broadcast. They were still celebrating. They were posing with all their championships. I thought it was cool. I thought we were going to get this moment back at, what was it, TakeOver Toronto? But they just kind of stalled on it a little bit. Instead of doing it all in one night, they wanted to break it apart. O'Reilly and Fish won the tag team titles a couple weeks ago against the Street Profits, and then here we have on this big groundbreaking show, Rowdy getting the win over the Velveteen Dream. So it took a little while, but we finally got it. The prophecy has come true. Adam Cole prophesied that all of the Undisputed Era would hold gold in 2019, and he was right. He was absolutely right. So I don't know where this goes. I don't know where each man goes in terms of feuds from here on out, but I kind of like the idea of the Velveteen Dream staying in NXT and eventually going after the NXT Championship and feuding with Adam Cole. Whether we get that match on an episode of NXT or we get it at a future TakeOver event, I really like the idea of doing that match somewhere down the line. So I would keep that in my back pocket if I were them. That's definitely a match and a feud that I could really dig. especially, since there's history now that Adam Cole is the one who cost the Dream the championship. So that's definitely a path they can go down in the future. But for right now, Roddy is the champion, all of Undisputed Era's champions, and I thought it was pretty damn cool. So the first match of the second hour was Pete Dunne taking on this guy named Arturo Ruiz, who got some pretty good offense in there. I think they say he had like some kind of combat background. I don't know if it was jiu-jitsu or taekwondo. I apologize. I'm not really sure. But for his part, he was very competitive. But it was no match for the Bruiserweight as he managed to pull off the win. He did his finger submission where he was pulling and yanking on the fingers and snapping them and all that kind of stuff. So he had no choice but to tap out. And Pete Dunne got the win. So Pete Dunne, I'm glad he's pretty much a regular on NXT now. And I look forward to seeing what he does in the future. They showed a vignette for Dakota Kai, who got injured a couple of months ago. But she's going to be making her return to TV on next week's show. So good to have her back. Speaking of the women, the next match was another women's match. We had Ziya Lee taking on Aaliyah, who had Vanessa Bourne in her corner. Just really a nothing match. This was probably the weakest part of the entire show. But Ziya Lee got the win with a windmill tornado kick kind of move on Aaliyah. So she gets the win. We had this guy, Denzel DeJournay, out there. He looked like he was straight out of the late 80s, early 90s, kind of, house party, Fresh Prince type stuff, getting the crowd into it. They were all dancing and jumping around. And the party quickly came to an end when Fabian Eichner, Marcel Bartel, and Alexander Wolf, representatives of the NXT UK faction Imperium, came out there. They laid waste to poor Denzel and laid him out. The crowd began chanting, "Where is Walter? We want Walter." And all three men stood in their pose and faced the entranceway, and that's when we heard the theme music of the NXT UK champion, Walter. He made his way out to the ring, cut a promo saying they're not going to be disrespected and all that kind of stuff. The crowd was really into Walter, and it's not hard to see why. Walter's pretty cool. But the original opponent for Denzel DeJournay, as told to us by Mauro Ranallo, was going to be Kushida. So Kushida came out. He was on the mic. He told Walter that this was my time. You interrupted my time, so now you are my time, basically implying that he's challenging Walter for his UK title. He cleaned house. He started to attack Eichner and Bartel and Wolf and all that kind of stuff. It looked like Walter was about to get the better of him. He grabbed him, but Kushida managed to slip out through his jacket, and he managed to escape, but he got a couple of good licks in on them. So, hey, if Walter versus Kushida can be anything like Walter versus Tyler Bate from the last UK TakeOver show, then I'm all for it. That match was tremendous. That was one of my favorite WWE matches of the entire year, if not my favorite WWE match of the entire year. So, I'm all for anything coming close to the magic that they captured in a match between Walter and Kushida. I think that'd be pretty cool to see Walter competing on NXT television on the USA Network against Kushida somewhere down the line. So hopefully we get that match. Up next, we had a number one contenders match, but a number one contender for what championship, you might ask? That championship being the Cruiserweight Championship. And the representatives fighting for a shot at that title were Lio Rush, that's right, that Lio Rush, and Oney Lorchan. So, big news all around this match. One, Lio Rush is back. We haven't heard or seen him in months, ever since, Scuffle and the scuttlebutt and words around the locker room that he was kind of a pain in the ass to deal with on the main roster, and they didn't really know what to do with him anymore. They took him away from Bobby Lashley as his mouthpiece, and there was said to be some incident with him and Finn Balor. I'm not going to get into all that, and Lio Rush eventually appeared on a podcast. I'm not going to get into all that. Basically, he became difficult to deal with for many people in the locker room, and he basically became banished and became persona non grata. So this was really cool to see him appear on the show. He got a huge ovation from the Full Sail crowd. They gave him a welcome back chant, not only as a return to NXT, for which he only appeared a couple of times, but just welcome back in general. And I second that. He's way too talented to not play some role in there. But aside from that, the fact that this was a match to determine the number one contender for the Cruiserweight Championship, that's also a big deal, because there's been rumors recently that 205 Live in its current incarnation could end, and it could kind of be melded into the NXT brand, and the Cruiserweight Championship and the division could kind of slowly transition into becoming a part of NXT, which I'm all for. Those 205 Live shows are dying a slow, agonizing death in their current state on the main roster, taking place after SmackDown and all that kind of stuff. So anything to differentiate that, I'm all for. And if that means bringing it to NXT, I am definitely for that. So the match itself was really good. Of course, Oney Lorchan, he's not much to look at. Not much in the way of a strong personality, but the dude, much like Roderick Strong, once he's in there, his stuff just looks so painful, but he's so damn good. And Lio Rush is really good too, so you knew these guys had a great match. There were some slaps in there, especially from Lorcan to Rush, that looked painful, but in the end, it was Lio Rush who got the win with the second best frog splash in the WWE, only behind Montez Ford's frog splash. But Lio Rush gets the win, and he is now the number one contender for the Cruiserweight Championship. So I imagine that match will eventually happen on a future episode of NXT. So, good stuff. And then the main event was supposed to be a street fight between Matt Riddle and Killian Dain. I don't know if the bell ever rang. I'm pretty sure the bell rang, but it sure never ended. The match just ended, which, let me get out of the way right now, was complete bullshit that they kind of went off the air with no ending of this match. So I'll get that out the way. With that said, the brawl they had here and how they closed this show was pretty fun. So the bell rung, and immediately Killian Dain went right after Matt Riddle. These two have been at a war for like a month or two now, and they've just been beating the holy hell out of each other, so you would expect nothing less here. They fought in the crowd, they had a kendo stick, and they were beating each other with the kendo stick. They fought to the back. They were fighting all around the arena. They eventually led them outside. We had a couple of cameos from some NXT guys, like the Street Profits and all that kind of stuff. They made their way outside, and right there in plain view of the camera was Walter. Wasn't going anywhere. And then once Riddle got the best of Killian Dain, if not for a brief moment, Walter ended up putting Matt Riddle in a sleeper hold. And that brought out the rest of Imperium, which also brought out the Street Profits, which brought out the Forgotten Sons, which brought out a lot of people who all just started a big brawl outside. It led back into the arena, back near ringside. Security came out trying to break it up. All kinds of commotion. Everyone was just beating the hell out of each other around ringside, in the ring. Eventually the ring gets cleared out. All that's left is Killian Dain, and he performs this huge dive through the ropes onto the outside. Everyone's wiped out, and that's kind of where they ended things. So like I said, not the biggest fan that that's how they went off the air. Would have loved for there to be a finish to this match, but the chaotic nature of it, that, this is not how this match was supposed to be, kind of feel, I dug it. I saw what they were going for, and I thought it was pretty cool. So, a very wild and crazy way to end the show, but still a very entertaining, enjoyable way to end the show at that. So I found it really good, and like I mentioned before, overall from top to bottom, I thought this was a strong episode of NXT. Their first ever 2-hour episode of NXT. I thought it was really good. Its debut as a live show in general, I didn't really notice too many camera flubs or too many botches in that regard. From a technical standpoint, I didn't really see anything too out of the ordinary. It seemed like regular NXT. The arena setup, it looked a little bit bigger. The rampway and all that kind of stuff, it looked bigger, but it still had its same aesthetic that NXT has. And for its first hour on the USA Network, like I said, the women's match to open was tremendous. You had a quick match to make Cameron Grimes look strong, and then that awesome match for the North American Championship between the Velveteen Dream and Roderick Strong. Great way to close it. On to the second hour. Like I said, I didn't love it as much as the first, but there was a lot of great stuff in there. Oney Lorchan and Lio Rush had a great match. This brawl was great to end it, so I had a lot of fun watching this. I won't be reviewing next week, but I will be watching. And then we'll get to October 2nd. That's the night that AEW goes head-to-head with NXT. I will be reviewing AEW that night. I will be watching AEW. My full attention will be on AEW that night. But I'll probably splice in some thoughts on NXT if I manage to catch a few things. But other than that, that's how that's going to be. Reviewing NXT every week is not going to be something I do, but if I have some thoughts, I will always put it on my Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So that's about it for me. Good work from NXT tonight, and I will see y'all later.